Okay.
I'm going to have to run away and come back because he needs something to eat. But please start.
Okay. All right, we will. You're good. Excellent. All right. Are we all ready? Does everyone have a siddur with them, our prayer book right here? So welcome again. For those of you who have not been to a Shiva Minyan, what happens is we do a regular evening service first, and then we move into the memorial prayers and some sharing of stories. So I'm giving you fair warning right now. We've got a couple people that are going to be speaking, but then we like to do what I call a living eulogy, which is where we invite all of you guys who are here, and just if you want to share a story, a memory, a thought, to be able to do so. Not so long so we can actually get to sleep tonight, but it is really nice to just hear some beautiful stories or memories from quite a diverse group of people that knew Walter in many different ways. So I want to start by finding another reading for you, a different one. I chose it specifically to read for today as opposed to the funeral. You'll hear it and you'll know why. It's by Graham Cook. Some folk drive for transport, just as a means unto an end. They treat cars as mere machine and not a trusted friend. Concerned only for the badge in front, how bright it may be shining, and the many pretty toys inside, their egos there defining. The driver sees it differently. With their car becomes a part. Take the road together, hit the road with a single beating heart. The turbo's rising wail and the exhaust's muscled, subtle growl. To the driver's ear, an orchestra, there's music in that howl. I'm thinking of the hotted up car. For you can feel the engine as the revs rise at your command, feeling the lusty thrust of power that answers your demand. How the clutch feels underfoot as each gear is selected. The steering too, how it responds to where it is directed. The road you feel within your palms at every bend you take. Every bump in line and camber, each triumph and mistake. Your car, it tells you all of this, for this is truly living. Petrol flowing through the veins and ways it can be driven. Not just a freeway drive, but each outing on a mission, and not a veering trundle, but a task of deep precision. Not the tedium of traffic, relief at the arriving. The thrill is in the journey and the passion in the driving. I dedicate that to Walter. We commence our service on page 2. We are called unto life, destiny uncertain, yet we offer thanks for what we know, for health and healing, for labor and repose, for renewal of beauty in earth and sky, for that blend of human holy which inspires compassion, and for hope, eternal promising light. Together we read, for life, for health, for hope, for beautiful, bountiful blessing, all praise to the source of being. Can someone please give Lynn and Lisa a correct siddur? So that's a chumash. So you want one that looks like this, as opposed to one that says the Torah. They're the same color. No, you can have your own. You're entitled. Thank you very much. It's okay. I'm sure you're not the only ones. You just happen to be the ones I can see. All right. We rise and turn to page 4. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Please be seated. We continue on page 7. We read together at the top of the page. Our praise to you, Eternal One, who brings the evening evermore, wisely parting the gates of time, ushering in the seasons, arraying with care the stars in the sky, unfurling light, then darkness, then light. Gently you fold the day into night. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Living God, your reign arches over us. Your light is everlasting. Our praise to you, Eternal One, who brings the evening evermore. Baruch Ata Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. On page 8. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shochbeinu, uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha leolam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu leolamim, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha uk'shatam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha uk'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Israel v'amata alehem v'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei vigdehem ledorotam v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf petir techeret v'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto uzachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai va'asitem otam ve'lo taturu acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי ואיתכם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, Adonai Elohechem Emet. On the top of page 15, we read together. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace, on page 16. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elech, nora tehilot osef elech, malechutecha ra'u vanecha, pokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Zelianu ve'yameru Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, v'ne'emar kifada Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael. On page 18, we read together at the bottom of the page, Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Eternal One, Guardian of Israel. Baruch ata Adonai, Shomer amo Israel la'ad. We rise for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 20. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabba, Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei zechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala u'vizman kariv, Ve'imeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevorach, Le'olam olam Eilmaya Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalem, v'yitalal, Shemei Dekudasha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'yalma, ve'imeru. Amen. We continue on page 75. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. We're going to say the first bit on page 74 together 2 times, and then we're going to continue silently through the end of the Amidah, which concludes on page 100. We can continue reading in Hebrew or English, or take time to appreciate the silence and see where your thoughts go. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatech. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha. מודים אנחנו לך. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. We now continue with the prayers of mourning on page 575. 575. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey from birth to death to life everlasting. On page 576, I didn't do my usual spiel at the funeral today because it was muddy and raining and freezing. So I'll do it here. When we come to Psalm 23, it's a psalm, I've said this if you've heard me say this at Minyanim or funerals before, it's a psalm that I never understood why it was read at funerals. For years, couldn't get my head around, why do we read this? Jewish, Muslim, Christian, doesn't matter, we read this psalm. It made no sense to me other than the fact that it had the words, you walk through the valley of death. That was the only thing I could wrap my head around. And then finally it occurred to me, it has actually nothing to do with the person who died. This prayer, this psalm, is written for all of us. It's written for the mourners. It's asking the mourners to say, rely on God as our shepherd, as the one who brings us all together, to give us this sense of calm, to give us a sense of strength, to let us feel that we can conquer our enemies, to let us feel that we've been blessed because we knew Walter, because he was a part of our lives, and that his goodness and his mercy will be with us and follow us always, and that what we do, because we knew him, honors his name, not just God, but also honors Walter's name. So I'm going to read this first in Hebrew, and then we'll read it together in English and see if you can have a new spin on this. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echzar, bino desher yirbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenachaleni, nafshi shovev, yancheni b'ma'aglei tzedek lema'an shamo, gam ki elech begetz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai, jishanta v'shaman roshi kosi ravaya, ach tov v'chesed yerdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'vet Adonai le'orech yamim. Together we read a psalm of David. With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You set me in circles of righteousness for the sake of your name. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Esaenai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Oseh Shamayim Va'aretz. Together, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Eternal One, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming, now and forever. On the bottom of page 579. Each person has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our father and mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile and given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by love. We each have a name given by celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and given by our death. Now, I do not know why Walter was given the name Walter. Do you know why Walter was? Yeah, why? He was named after your German grandfather. There you go. So he was given to carry on the memory of your German grandfather. What do we know about Walter the grandfather? Okay, he was the boss of the company back in Dresden. So he was the boss of a company, and he was revered by his son. And so he embodied the name of his grandfather, of his father's father, who he admired and revered so much. So with that name, he was bestowing upon Walter a sense of reverence and a sense of stature. Now his Hebrew name, Ze'ev, meaning wolf, you know, he's strong and yet mischievous. Did they know that when they called him that? Who knows? But we are told that we embody our names in a sense. And today, when we call up and we share some stories, we can think about how is it that he has embodied his name? What is his life and what has his death given to him to honor him and encapsulate his being as much as possible? So I would like to call his twin brother, Tom, up to share a few words first. I'm giving you this so that people can hear you online.
My name's dictionary tells me Walter is the brave warrior.
Oh, tell them that.
My name's dictionary tells me that Walter is the brave warrior.
And he was very brave. Would you like me to hold this if you want?
One moment, please. Okay. My identical twin Walter was the firstborn of us at 11:30 on January 31st, 1950, and at the time, me being the meek one, I came an hour later, which I have now turned into a joke. I've been asked many times, why so long between births? Jokingly I reply, I didn't want to leave the comfy home I'd grown up in since I had it to myself for the first time. During pregnancy, I was hiding behind Walt, which caused the medicos to be unable to detect my heartbeat with a stethoscope. However, Mum was convinced that she was having twins because she quickly became way bigger than her first two pregnancies with our late brothers Leon and Richard. That long ago, scans hadn't been invented, so Mum insisted on an X-ray, and lo and behold, you won't need 19 guesses to figure Who was bringing up the rear? Okay. We grew up in Black Rock, which was fairly close to Dad's factory in Hyatt. He and his younger brother, Jack, our uncle, were De Niro boys. After World War II, they opened a factory making the same product, embossed advertising placards, that the family made and had the patent for in Dresden, Germany until the Holocaust. At one end of our street where we grew up was Black Rock Primary School, known as Blackie State, and the other Half Moon Bay. So we grew up in a very nice place. In that era, Melbourne's traffic was a fraction of what it is now. So we would play on the road in summer after dinner with the neighbouring kids. In those days, dogs freely ran the streets, and our dog named Skippy, a savage Kelpie sheepdog who chased all the cars. His name described what he looked like. He was skipping along when in chasing mode. He would accompany us to school, and in the afternoon at home time, he would hear the brass school bell and be at the school gate to greet us. Mum was able to stay home with our little baby sister Heather. In the winter of 1957, Melbourne suffered the infamous Asian flu pandemic, and the school emptied for 2 weeks. We were in grade 2, and when we returned to school, Walt broke out with what now is readily recognised as diabetes. By the time he was admitted into the original Children's Hospital in Carlton, he was nearly comatose. And as we looked so much alike, they did the fasting blood sugar testing on me, and it was coming. His diagnosis date is August 1959, and mine 2 months later in October. Until last Friday, when he passed away, we were recognised by Diabetes Australia as the longest surviving twin pair in Australia, and we received the Kenyon Awards for surviving diabetes. The first award, the Silver Kenyon, was for 50 years, and the second award, the Gold Award, for 60 years. Unfortunately, he will miss the next award for 70 years, which is in 3 years' time. Our secondary school was Hyatt High School, which was very close to Dad's factory, and as we didn't do well in Year 11, we went to work. Walt became a salesman at Burke Appliances in the city, that later became Burke's ACTU. I forgot to include that. And owned by a Jewish family friend of Mum's, I took up an apprenticeship in a local instrument factory and became a scientific instrument maker. Dad was growing older, so our eldest brother Leon for a while became the factory manager together with Dad. And later Leon left to take up his profession as an electronic radio engineer in Telstra. Walter took his place and ran the business for many years. Now, how to describe Walter? He was loyal to all of us, and my close twin relationship only began to fade in these last few years when he wasn't himself and became unwell. Dad was a preeminent classical pianist all of us siblings. That was a great pleasure. We were also in complete agreement, this is Walt and I, about politics, daily reading The Australian, and we would alert each other to what we considered were special articles, and we always shared our love of cars. Brother Richard, he's the second born, was mentally unwell and continually was being ejected from rented flats because he disturbed his neighbours. So our parents wisely allowed extra money in their will to buy him a flat, which I located through a Jewish pal in the business, and then Walt took over the management of it, even being on the body corporate. 2 final points. At Lynn and Walt's wedding in 1981, a mere 53 years ago, which was conducted by Rabbi John Levi here at Temple, of course, it goes without saying, I was the best man. He also took us for our twin bar mitzvah here 62 years ago. Lastly, John Levi, who turns 90 next month, very kindly emailed his condolences to me.
Thank you, Tom. Simon.
Sure.
Okay, I apologise to anyone that heard all of these jokes already, but Dad was not afraid to tell jokes multiple times, the same jokes. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I'd like to share some thoughts and stories that characterise my father, Walter, and also Lisa's father, Lynn's husband of 52 years, grandfather of Charlie and Noah, identical twin of Tom, brother to Heather, and their two older brothers, Leon and Richard, that we remember fondly. Uncle to our 10 cousins and friend to many, especially close with Les and Tanya, who are here tonight, Kay and Arwen, Rachel and Itzy also here tonight, Vicky and Vic, Di and Dave, and Pam and David that are here too. I thought I'd start with thanks for the amazing outpouring of love and support that my mum, sister and I have experienced from when Dad became seriously ill in his last 24 hours onwards, and it has continued all throughout today. The number of close friends that Dad kept that go way back are a testament to his character and the devotion he showed to all that he loved and was involved with. Over the last few days, I've had the time to reflect on Dad and my childhood, and being a parent now, I would recall with respect how it was that our family got through all life's challenges and to all the joyous and difficult events that we shared, including Shabbat dinners very regularly with my grandparents, Frank, as we've heard, a Holocaust survivor, and Posey, our doting granny. And then we went to all the extracurricular activities, a lot of hockey for me, little aths, Lisa to calisthenics and lots of other things. And then we played piano and we had tons of lessons and concerts and all sorts of things. Whenever Dad couldn't get us there, Mum was also on there, backed all that up. And that was because Dad was helping make it all happen as well, working furiously behind the scenes to keep the family business going. And as Tom's pointed out, that was his father's business as well, the printing and bossing business. Charlie recently had the honour of writing an assignment on Walt's behalf on Walt's father's Holocaust story and his escape and immigration to Australia through a concentration camp in Germany, to England as a refugee, and then on to Australia on the Dunera, where he met Posey, my grandmother, started the family and the family business, and they generally prospered. Having worked closely with Frank for so many years, Dad knew the whole story really well, and was very generous in how he shared it. But poor Charlie had to edit 4 hours of monologue down to his school assignment, which he did amazingly well with. But it's a testament and carries Walt's unique storytelling style, but also the story of our family. There was also, of course, a lot of humour in that, which I'll return to in a moment. But first I'd like to mention Tom and Mum in a bit more detail. Tom's talked a lot about his relationship with Dad. As you know, their bond and their diabetes closely defined their lives and their relationships. Charlie and I like to think of Dad and Tom as the Thompson twins from Tintin, with one being 100% perfectly correct and the other one 100% correct perfectly, always arguing together, especially about their diabetes management and who was best. Unfortunately, I believe Tom's won that argument tonight. But there were countless tales of their pranks and games as twins. I remember vivid stories from Granny and yourself of being put in a blue and a pink shirt and then changing shirts at lunchtime at school, and then changing classes. And their shared medical experiences, including having to have, Tom had open heart surgery and my dad had a stent placed because he couldn't manage the surgery. And they were at the same time in Cabrini Hospital wearing Aldi pyjamas in the same ward. Of course.
Oh, sorry. Walt was at one end of the ward and me at the other, and I was barely fit to walk after big surgery, but they let me go solo. And when I walked into his ward to the nurse's station, somebody said, "Walter, what are you doing out of bed?" And the big male nurse said, "Hey, look at that patch on his throat." This was into the carotid. "That's not Walter."
And now we're going, the other related, I'll move off the script because many of you are here today, but the other story I remember fondly that I believe you told me, Tom, was that someone rang up a mum in a frantic state when I was very young and Lisa was very young and said that they'd seen Walter at a right-turning arrow, missing the lights a couple of times, kissing this lady at the lights, which of course turned out to be Judy. And it was, of course, Judy and Tom not long before their wedding. Okay, I'll back onto the script. So What I wanted to, something I mentioned today, and it just to give you reference for how long they've had diabetes. If you look at Noah and you look at Tom, Noah's 7, Tom 54, and that's how long they've had their diabetes, because they picked it up at the age of Noah. So if you think of that much of a life suffering through this awkward disease, that's what they've received their medals for, and that's what we're most proud of, their struggle together. And they've done a wonderful job. Mum, moving on to, has been a rock for Dad for 52 years of marriage. Her love standing by Dad, each being their own closest companions, basically being a nurse for him over the last 10 years and receiving some respite for that, which was well deserved. The extent of this devotion and their love being characterised by Charlie's standing joke with Dad, which was, do you want to say it, Charlie? What's wrong?
Everything.
What's wrong with Zeta? Everything, including his humour and his clothes and his music's taste. Where do we stop, Charlie? And Mum supported him through all of it. Moving on to Dad's humour, I thought I'd just tell some stories about his clubs and hobbies. The Ormond Angling Club, and there were many members present at the funeral today, provided him a lifetime membership in recognition of all his support to them, and many of their members came up to us today and expressed how much he'd meant to the club. He was, and this characterised Dad. What he was passionate about, he worked very hard for, and for the people involved. But he always injected some humour along the way, and I'm not sure how good results sometimes came of that, because as this story says, he secured a long-term tenant for the angling club in the Hasidic school, and that turned out to be very good for everyone. Provided a lot of financial support to the angling club, but also gave the Hasidic school a base. Somehow, this came off with Dad telling the Hasids that, "I can't believe you pay so much for these clothes. Mine are 40 years out of date, not 400 like yours." But somehow they signed the lease. Anyway, when they requested mezuzah on every door, he broke the ice by saying, "Oh, they only hold the 10 Commandments up there. If you let them have the 3-inch ones, they'll just include the standard, thou shalt not, all of the lows, you cannot do this, you cannot do that behind me. But if you let them have another 3.5 inches, they'll include the 11th, thou shalt not get caught." He loved his driving, as been mentioned by the rabbi. Driving lessons with Dad were absolutely crazy. He bought a car for me, a Lada Niva, that everything didn't work on and broke down. Didn't even have a petrol gauge that worked, so we kept running out of petrol. But he bought it, I think, ostensibly so he could drive it crazily, not me. And especially on the windy roads between Fish Creek and Sandy Point. He taught me whilst driving how to enter and exit a corner, an off-camber corner at stupid speeds whilst on my L's, and reminding me that it doesn't matter how many millimetres you miss the oncoming cars by, as long as you actually miss them. Unfortunately, his eyesight deteriorated and he ended up running into the back of a fire engine, as well as many other incidents. And I believe Tommy shares a similar story, running into the back of a tram. Is that not? Was that Dad? The side of the fire engine. Yep. Not long after that, he was pulled off the road, understandably. There is some story about a Volkswagen getting towed up Swanson Street with the driver in it, and I'm not sure if it was you or it must have been Dad saying it was you. All right, to close all of this off, my last story is about his gripping conversation, or when he had a grip on people in conversation, and Sandy Point. So Dad and Mum took us there when I was 4 years old for the first time, Lisa 5, and they've been back I reckon every month since, with a series of Border Collies, following on from one very aggressive Australian Terrier Spike that we love dearly. As a family, we've shared countless memories down there. In the last few years, Dad has also endeared himself to more or less the whole town and everyone that came in over the summer. He'd go off on his walking frame to the shops, ostensibly to buy milk, but he'd talk to absolutely everyone from the home to the shops and back, and Mum would have the spot tracker on him and see him disappear into various friends' houses, and he'd managed to come home several hours later with the milk, which was good. This summer he'll be missed by everyone down there, and we'll have to relay to them what's happened, of course. But no one will miss him more than Mum, who's lost her lifetime companion, and we'll all be here for Mum through the gradually less lonely times ahead. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Steve.
My name is Steve Sachs, Ray's husband. I'd like to say a few words about my brother-in-law, Walter Firestone, on behalf of our family. Sorry. Ray met Walter the first time when she was 14 years old. And she'll never forget when he walked up to the door with a bouquet of flowers. Were those for Shirley or for the... And Ray's impression at that time was, what a suck. Sorry? What was that? That was what they told me as well. I don't think I ever told Walt how much I admired and respected him. Walt and Tom were thought to be Australia's longest surviving twins with type 1 diabetes. Despite his debilitating illness, he was able to run a successful printing business, raise 2 amazing children, and be the best husband, father, and grandfather he could be. Amazingly intelligent, quite a raconteur, with broad general knowledge, he was particularly passionate about cars, fishing, current affairs, and business. He will forever be known to our children Adam, Michael, and JJ as Unky Walt. Walt was always there to provide help and advice to our kids. Here's a recollection from Michael from his holiday in Japan. If you're up there, Michael. At Passover this year, I was having a chat to Unky Walt about an upcoming work prospect filming at the Grand Prix for Porsche. Unky Walt was quite perturbed by the interaction. He said, if you're going to be around these kind of people, I need to teach you how to talk correctly. It's not Grand Prix, it's Grand Prix. And it's not Porsche, it's Porsche. Throughout my design and creative career, Unky Walt was really the only person who truly appreciated the effort put into my business cards. Embossing, debossing, foiling, letterpress, the best GSM thickness of paper, and different stocks. He knew it all like the back of his hand and pioneered some of these techniques in Australia. I remember when I printed my latest cards, I came over to Lynn and Walt's house to seek approval from the master. Unky Walt took out his magnifying glass and spent 10 minutes inspecting the craft work that had gone into it. He couldn't have been prouder. From incredible stories about his family in Dresden to funny work anecdotes about impossible print deadlines that he somehow completed, Unky Walt was a wealth of knowledge. He was such an important and wise part of our family, and we'll all miss him. That was from Michael. A quick word about my wonderful sister-in-law, Lynn. For decades, despite all her varied interests, Lynn has been Walt's primary caregiver. Doctors never thought that Walt would survive his 50th birthday. Yet with Lynn's dedication, despite all odds, he made it to 74. Rest in peace, Walt. We will all feel your absence deeply. You will always be in our thoughts.
Does anyone else have a burning desire story to share of something that we haven't already heard? Yes, come on down. Beautiful.
I never thought I'd have the last word on Walter. I met Walter and Lynn some 36 years ago when they welcomed me to our street. I would find Walter on my front porch at least once a month. Even if I wasn't home, he would still be sitting there, and we would talk. We would talk about politics, world events, but it always got back to motor cars. We agreed on much, but we disagreed on one thing, and we disagreed on that one thing only a few weeks ago. Walter had this very strange belief that the MG was a better car than the Mark II Spitfire. Clearly he was wrong. But I will give him today that the MGB was a good car, but the Mark II Triumph Spitfire was far superior. Walter was a dear friend to the McGee family, and the McGee family will still be a dear friend to Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is it just me, or does anyone have no idea what he's talking about, those two cars? Just out of curiosity. All right. You guys have a lot to live up to. You have to understand that language there and how to pronounce it properly. Okay. I'm going to invite everybody else to hold whatever memories they have or thoughts or ideas of Walt in your minds and in your hearts as you rise and turn to page 582, 582. I lied, 583. El male rachamim, shochen baromim, hamatze menucha nuchana, tachat kanfei hashechina, im kedoshim utorim, ki zohara ki amasirim, את נשמת זאב בן שלמה הלוי, שהלך לו עולמו, בעל הרחמים, יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור ביצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved one, Walter James Firestone, who has entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and the pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold him in the embrace of your wings. Secure his soul in eternity. O God, he is yours. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. On page 584, I'm going to read this, and I invite you to say afterwards, we remember him. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we'll remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we'll remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we'll remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we'll remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we'll remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we'll remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we'll remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we'll remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. On page 586, we remain standing, and we do the Aleinu number 2. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמם, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. We read together on the top of page 591. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'ne'ema v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. On the top of page 595. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can only tell us what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is a part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. I forgot to say my little bit. I'm not going to read my whole thing. I'm just going to read the ending. Walter will be remembered as a good friend, generous, kind, caring, diligent, and professional. As a brother to Leon, Richard, and Heather, he was fantastic. As a twin to Tom, he was always the one on top and ahead of you. But your second half. As a husband to Lynn, he was beautiful, respectful, encouraging, fair, and proud. He even did the washing. They had a good relationship and did everything together, though at times with Tom around, she admitted feeling like she had two husbands. I don't know what to think about that. My condolences twice over. As a father to Lisa and Simon, he was both tough and caring and always looked after their needs. As a grandfather to Charlie and Noah, he was a loving Zeta. Walter, you will definitely be dearly missed. Zichrono levracha, may his memory be for a blessing. On page 598, the Kadisha tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. You ready? Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'rechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. המקום ינחם אתכם בתוך שער אבלי ציון וירושלים. May God grant you comfort and peace and chazak va'amat, strength and courage as you move forward in this world and this life without his physical presence, and knowing that everything that he gave you and he shared with you will live inside of you in all that you do and all that you are. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you. And if you can please bring your cedar back to the front, that would be really helpful. Thank you.